Hey awesome people, welcome to another episode of SewAddicts. Today's episode is going to be a little bit more fun and relaxed just because we are making a swing peplum hem dress. Now this dress is supposed to be a little bit more fun, flirty, and just the relaxed feel that I've actually been digging these days. And I'm pretty sure you guys are going to be thanking me in a couple of weeks when it starts getting really nice outside in the spring, in the summer, you know. And for some of my viewers that actually stay in parts of the world that it's pretty much nice all the time, let me tell you right now, I am so jealous of you guys because as I'm sitting here talking to you guys, it's snowing outside and it's really, really cold. So hey, you guys have the opportunity to make this dress and wear it whenever you can. But for some of us that still have to wait a couple of weeks or months, depending on where you are, this dress is definitely gonna come in handy. You have a lot of time to make this dress. So again, this dress is supposed to be fun, flirty, you know, just a little bit more of a free lifestyle kind of dress. And I hope you guys really enjoy this tutorial. I will say this tutorial is more of a intermediate to an advanced level sword, but if you're a beginner, do not hesitate and don't doubt yourself either. Make sure to watch the video step by step, and of course I'm always here for you guys to answer any questions you might have. So again, if you're new here, welcome to my channel. I really hope you love what you see so far, and if you do, make sure to hit down that red button at the bottom of this video so you can see more awesome videos from me. If you have any questions or any comments about this video or any of my other videos, make sure to scroll down and leave me a couple of words. I'm definitely looking at those as well. I really appreciate you guys being here today, and let's just get started with the tutorial. So getting started, we're going to take a look at our patterns. Now I already have my patterns made from a previous video, so if you want to learn how to make these patterns, make sure to check the link down below. It is this video right here, and I already made these patterns in the previous video, but we're going to actually alter these patterns to make our swing dress. So getting started, you want to grab a huge piece of paper, and we're just going to take our already made pattern and we're going to trace this pattern out to alter for our dress. So you want to make sure that it's laying nice and flat, and I'm just going ahead to trace out my neckline, my shoulders, my armhole, and of course my side seam as well. Now one thing to consider when we're altering this pattern is your side seam. Now your waist measurement, you want to make sure to double check the waist measurement of this pattern and the waist measurement of your actual swing dress. Now keep in mind that when you're measuring your swing dress waist measurement, it has to be a little bigger than your actual waist, maybe about 2 inches bigger. So I measured this now and I'm satisfied with how wide this pattern was. So then you want to go ahead and measure 9 to 10 inches down from your highest waist point. So I'm measuring that point to get the highest hip point so I could draw how wide my swing dress is supposed to be. So now I just went ahead and measured how wide I wanted my hip to be. Now make sure to take your hip measurement, add about 2.5 inches to this and divide that by 4. This is going to give you this point I have here. And the next point I have obviously is my seam allowance mark, and I'm just making sure to blend that neatly with my waist measurement. And you also want to curve this nicely at the waist, don't make it too sharp when you're measuring down. So then I just went ahead and measured the length of my actual dress, which I made mine about 38 inches long. So you want to also make sure to measure your length of your dress before actually drawing it on your pattern, and when you're done, you just want to square that off. So we're actually going to be joining these two lines together. So this is pretty much all the measurements you need to alter this pattern. Now you can just go right ahead and add your seam allowance. Make sure to note that seam allowance has already been added to this pattern previously, so you don't want to add more if you don't have to, but make sure to trace out all your patterns neatly and make sure to label them as well, and of course cut it out. So then we're going to be grabbing our back pattern, and we're pretty much going to be doing the same thing just like we did for the front. Again, you want to trace out your back pattern And again, when it comes to the waist measurement, you want to make sure to add about 2 inches and divide it by 4 to get your waist measurement. Measure the highest hip point, which is going to be about 9 to 10 inches. Measure how wide you want your hip to be and blend that with your waist. Now, one thing is you could also take your front pattern to measure how long your back is going to be. So you make sure that both front and backs are equally long. So the same thing, we're going to be joining those 2 lines together. We're also going to be adding our seam allowances. Make sure to blend all your seams, nothing is too sharp. Make sure to add the seam allowances. Make sure to also label your pattern and of course cut it out. Now we're going to go right ahead and alter our old sleeve. So I'm just going to go right ahead to draw a nice straight line on my new sheet of paper. Now this straight line, I'm going to be placing my old sleeve to match this new line. So old lines matching the new line. Now I'm going to go right ahead making sure that the pattern is laying nice and flat, and I'm just going to go ahead and trace out my old sleeve. Now I want my sleeve to be a little shorter than this. You could make yours longer or shorter depending on your style or taste. So I'm just going right ahead and measuring 10 inches down from my sleeve height and all the way down. So I want my sleeve to be about 10 inches. So I'm just marking that point on my new pattern, as you guys can see. So when you're done with this, I'm just going to take my ruler and square that line off. Again, you could make yours shorter or longer depending on your taste. So now that I have my line all drawn, you want to make sure to add 1 inch seam allowance to the bottom of your sleeve. Now at this point, I'm just going to go right ahead and true up all my lines, making sure that they're very visible. And I'm just going to make sure that to add my seam allowance marks as well. Make sure to label your front from your back, as this is going to come in handy later. And you just want to make sure to cut your sleeve right out. So at this point, you should have your front pattern cut out, your back pattern, and of course your sleeve. So now we're going to go into the materials I use for this project. So I have about 3.5 yards of my main fabric, 2.5 of my lining, and a 22-inch zipper. Now we're going to go into the cutting phase. So you want to make sure to place your fabric on the fold. So now we're going to grab our front pattern and place this right at the edge of our fabric. So all you want to do is basically just pin your front pattern down, and we're just going to go right ahead and cut this out of our fabric. Moving on to the back is pretty much the same idea, but I just went ahead and actually measured a 1/2 inch away from my edge for the back. Now this is going to be where my zipper is going to go. If you want to put your zipper at your side seams, you could just go right ahead and ignore this step and just place it right at the edge. And of course, cut it out just like we did for the front. So the sleeve is pretty much the same idea. You want to make sure to place this on the fabric, but we're actually going to be cutting out too, so you also want to make sure to accommodate for that. So I'm placing the sleeve nicely on the fabric, and I'm just going to go right ahead and cut this out of the fabric as well. So at this point, I have my front and back cut out, and I also have them cut out in my lining as well. I also have my sleeve cut out, which I actually went ahead and notched the front to make sure I could tell the difference between the front and the back, but you could just place a pin there for now. So the next thing we're going to do is to grab our front pattern, and we're actually going to be attaching our front patterns and back patterns together. So my back patterns, I actually went ahead and divided that in half, so I have the space for my zipper to go in the back. So the next thing you want to do is to pretty much pin your front and back side seams together, as we're going to be sewing this on the sewing machine. So I'm just going ahead to pin my front and back side seams together, making sure that I also do this for my lining. You want to make sure that whatever you do to the main fabric, you also do to the lining as well. So after sewing the side seams, we're also going to go right ahead and actually sew the shoulder points as well. So now I have my front and back and my lining all sewn up. So at this point, you want to grab your main fabric, and now we're going to take our zipper. So I just placed my zipper on the fabric to identify how long my zipper actually is, and we're just going to sew the rest of the way down of our main fabric. So I notched that just to make sure I have my points correctly, and we're going to sew from that point all the way down to the bottom of the fabric. So I went ahead and actually sewed this down, and of course I also went ahead to press this. Make sure to always press along the way. Now this is where we're gonna insert our zipper. So I'm just making sure to sew the edge of my zipper right at the seam allowance point at my center back. So you wanna make sure to just run this down on the machine, making sure that your zipper is nicely and neatly in place. So again, I went ahead and actually sewed this on the sewing machine, and of course make sure to also press. So at this point, now we're gonna attach our sleeve. So the sleeve is super easy. Remember, you wanna make sure to identify the front from the back. Again, I just went ahead and notched it so I could tell my front from my back. The notch part is my front. So now we're gonna be putting right size to right size and sewing down at the side seams of our sleeve. So I went ahead and sewed this on the sewing machine. As you guys can see, make sure to also press. Now to finish up the edge of our sleeve, we're gonna be double folding this at a 1/2 inch. So remember we had an inch, now we're gonna fold it twice at a 1/2 inch. So I'm folding mine twice, and we're gonna actually top stitch this on the sewing machine. So make sure to just pin this all around to give you a kind of ease and guideline when sewing. So I went ahead and sewed this neatly on the sewing machine, as you guys can see, and I also pressed it out. So of course, after sewing the sleeves, you want to make sure to attach them to the actual dress. So making sure that, of course, the front is matched up with the front and the back to the back. I'm just going to pin this right at the side seams of our dress and the sleeve, and you just want to basically walk this neatly into your armhole. So I'm just grabbing nicely, making sure that my pins are sitting in there, and this is going to be a great guideline for my sleeve. So making sure that the edge and top of the sleeve is at the shoulder points as well, and I just ran this through the sewing machine, and everything is laying nice and flat. So the next thing you want to do is pretty much putting your lining. So the lining is the wrong side facing you, just like you can see, and we're gonna put this in through the back. So the wrong side is actually outside facing you, and the right side is inside. So we just want to walk that into our actual main fabric, making sure the shoulders are touching shoulders, and this is what we're going to use to finish up the neckline. So neckline is going to basically be right sides to right side. So you want to merge the right sides of your lining and the right sides of your actual fabric together. So you just want to pin this all around, making sure the shoulders match shoulders all around your neckline. So I'm making sure that the shoulders match the shoulders on one side, the shoulders match the shoulders on the other side, and we're just going to sew this right at 1/4 inch all around. So I went ahead and actually sewed this on the sewing machine, as you guys can see, and you could trim that seam allowance down if you want, but if you don't want to trim it down, you could just leave it, and you just want to make sure to put your lining back into the actual fabric, and of course make sure to press this down so it lays nice and flat. So now the next thing we're going to do is to use the lining to finish up the armhole. So you could just go right ahead and run this through your serger if you have a serger, but if you don't, we're going to be going into the lining and actually grabbing the seam allowance through the lining. So I'm just going right into the lining, as you guys can see, and I'm going to grab my lining and of course the extra seam allowance right there, just like this, and I'm going to be pulling that out through the lining. Now we're just going to sew this around just like we did for the sleeve. So I'm going ahead, making sure that the side seams are matching up, and I'm just going to walk that around my sleeve, making sure that it's neat and nicely placed. So when you have this all sewn up, I actually went ahead and ran this through the sewing machine, and it looks really neat, and it covers up all the extra ugly seam allowances right at the armhole. So the next thing we're going to do is to address the bottom of our dress. So this is where we're going to put the peplum hem. Now this is a little bit more complicated, but just hang in there with me. So you want to grab one of your extra fabrics that you have laying around, making sure that it's unfold. So we're going to grab our main dress, and now I want to draft out the peplum hem for my front. We're going to be drafting out the front separately from the back. So what you want to do is take your front, and we're actually going to be folding this in half, just like it was in the beginning before we actually sewed the front and back together. So I grabbed my front, and I'm actually going to be folding this in half, and you could just go right ahead, make sure that your side seams are matching up, and you could just go right ahead and pin that. If it's easier for you, you could just go ahead and also pin all around the bottom so it stays nice and flat. Now this is what we're going to be placing on our little tiny scrap of fabric we have over here, making sure that the edge and the edge of the also tiny fabric are matching up, so we have both edges on fold. Now we just want to trace out this curve at the bottom, so I'm making sure that I have enough fabric, because you don't want to start tracing and you don't have enough fabric. So I'm making sure I have enough fabric, and I'm just gonna go right ahead and start tracing the bottom of my dress on the scrap of fabric I have here. So now you also want to make sure to get how long you want your hem to be. So I want mine to be 6 inches, but I measured 7 to account for the 1/2 inch seam allowance at the bottom and at the top. So you just want to go ahead and keep measuring 7 inches, following that curve of your dress. So I have that curve all straightened out. I have my side seam right there, which is that point, and I'm just going to go right ahead and true up all these lines, making sure that they're really visible. So when I get to the edge, I'm also going to make sure that I want to draw this edge as far out as I can, making sure to match it up with the bottom. So I just went ahead and also measured 7 inches on this line and to match it with the bottom. Now you just want to cut this out. I already have some allowances at the edge, but I'm just going to add another 1/2 inch to this side right here for my side seams, and I'm just going to cut that out as well. Make sure to do this for your front and back. The back is usually wider, so you also want to repeat the same process, folding the back in half and also cutting out the peplum hem as well. Now when you've done this, you want to sew your peplum hem side seams to side seams, your front and back, and you want to make sure to sew this, as we're going to be attaching this to the bottom of our dress. So I have the side seams of my peplum hem all sewn up, so now we're going to basically attach it to the bottom of our dress. So you want to make sure to attach your back to the back, and of course the front to the front as well. So now we're just going to walk that in, making sure that our side seams for the main fabric and the side seams for the peplum hem are matching up. So we're just going to pin this all around and run this at a 1/2 inch through the sewing machine. So at this point, I've successfully attached my peplum hem to my dress, and I also went ahead and finished the hem of my dress and also the lining, just like we did for our sleeve. So last but not the least, we're going to address the lining. So the lining is going to be used to cover up the extra seam allowance at the zipper, and also just to finish up the garment nice and neat. So we're going to go right into the lining, and we're going to grab our lining from the inside and also the excess seam allowance at our zipper. So we're just going to grab that and turn that out. So this is what we're going to use to finish up the extra seam at our zipper. So I'm just going to pin this all the way around down my zipper, and this is going to finish up my zipper neatly. So you want to make sure to just pin this and obviously sew this down the sewing machine as close to the zipper teeth as you can from one side to the other side. Now one thing to keep in mind is you want to sew as close to the bottom of the zipper as you can, but you don't want to get too close because there's going to be a hole there eventually. So I went ahead and actually ran this through the sewing machine. As you guys can see, it's nice and neat, and of course I still have that hole, which is okay. So now I'm just turning all my main fabric to the right side, making sure that my lining is on the inside. And yeah, I'm kind of having a little bit of hard time over here, but yeah, you want to successfully turn this over, and of course you also want to make sure to press this neatly as well, and your zipper should be neatly finished. And at this point, everything is nice and neat and done, and your dress is pretty much ready to wear. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you guys really enjoyed this tutorial. Please make sure to give this video a big like or scroll down and leave a couple of words in the comment section. If you haven't already, make sure to also check out some of my previous videos. I hope you guys really enjoy them. Please make sure to also hit down the red subscribe button to see more awesome videos from me, and I hope to catch you awesome SewAddicts next week.